Good evening. In the midst of a battle over tariff threats from the incoming U.S. president, Ontario's premier is proposing an enhanced energy partnership between the United States and Canada.
Doug Ford says the move would help create energy security for North America. CTV's Mike Walker has been following the premier's plan and joins us live with more. Mike.
Well, Nathan, Michelle, the premier pitching collaboration now after just a few weeks ago threatening to cut off power to the U.S. The government says the province is positioned to meet the growing energy demand on both sides of the border.
We have the energy they need.
Touting Ontario's nuclear power, Premier Doug Ford is pitching an ambitious energy alliance between Canada and the U.S. in an attempt to avoid looming tariffs from President-elect Donald Trump.
It won't be easy and it won't happen overnight. But we owe it to workers in Ontario, across Canada, and the U.S. to act now.
This pitch comes exactly 4 weeks after the premier threatened to cut off power provided to 4 states if Trump imposes 25% tariffs on Canadian goods.
That's the last thing we want to do.
Instead, the Ford government is proposing to expand Ontario's grid in order to export more electricity to the U.S., fast-tracking approvals for large nuclear plants as well as small modular nuclear reactors, cutting red tape for cross-border transmission lines and pipelines, plus ramping up production of medical isotopes for cancer patients.
We are building for the future, focused on affordability and reliability. A system that today powers good jobs and economic prosperity on both sides of the border. A system that is connected through 12 transmission lines and numerous pipelines.
It's the latest tariff response by the government. Yesterday, it vowed to increase patrols at 14 border crossings. As the president-elect has been increasing his rhetoric on Canada becoming the 51st state, yesterday, Trump said this about Canadian goods.
We don't need anything they have.
Dismissing Trump's rhetoric,
Let's stop wasting time and ridiculous ideas about merging.
Ford believes the U.S. would be a willing partner in this power plan and other trade deals.
We ship 4.3 million barrels of crude oil down to the U.S. 60% of their energy imports are coming from Canada. We keep the lights on with 1.5 million homes and businesses.
Adding that many of the initiatives outlined today will require support and action from the federal government. This afternoon, the premier was asked if he's received any feedback from the federal government on his energy plan. He expressed some frustration, saying he hasn't heard anything from the government on this, criticizing a lack of leadership in Ottawa. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Meanwhile, this afternoon, Premier Ford held a call with his provincial counterparts.
They were discussing next steps in the fight against proposed U.S. tariffs. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live with the latest there. Siobhan.
Well, this virtual discussion lasted a little over an hour. Doug Ford says it was a good, constructive conversation. The idea here was to get all of the premiers on the same page to make sure they're willing to do what it takes to fight against potential tariffs, though the window to prevent them may have closed.
I personally feel they're coming hard. The president has really ramped up his talking points over the last day or two, and we're concerned. We're concerned, but we're a strong country. We're a very strong country when it comes to the critical minerals and energy and manufacturing.
The specifics of how Canada will counter possible 25% tariffs will be part of a discussion in Ottawa next week when premiers meet again. This time, though, with the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. That includes a retaliatory tariff list that Ford isn't willing to share right now. He says that wouldn't be strategic. Premiers are also heading to Washington next month to make their case with American politicians.
As chair, we'll be taking the lead. Ontario will, and I know other premiers are going to be setting up meetings and their contacts that they build up their relationships with congresspeople or senators or governors.
In the middle of all this, Doug Ford's SUV was involved in a crash on Highway 401 this afternoon as he was on his way back to Queen's Park for that virtual meeting. The premier says he's fine, so is his staff and his OPP detail. He says he is hoping that the man in the other vehicle is okay as well. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Still to come, welcome news for tens of thousands of college students in this province. A potential strike by faculty has been averted. We'll tell you why staff won't be walking off the job. But first, an intense fight is underway this hour as fierce wildfires rage in the Los Angeles area.
Ferocious winds whipping up widespread destruction that has now claimed lives and forced thousands from their homes. CTV's Rahim Ladani has been monitoring the situation as firefighters battle multiple blazes. What's the latest, Rahim?
Well, Michelle and Nathan, I can tell you that right now officials say that 0% of wildfires are contained right now. Many parts of LA County haven't seen rain in hundreds of days, and so conditions were ripe for wildfires. But the resources just aren't sufficient for 4 fires at the same time. Passengers flying over Los Angeles' Pacific Palisades neighborhood can only watch, as on the ground, thousands of homes are engulfed in flames, with residents desperately trying to escape to safety.
I could see open flames in my backyard, and as we were driving down our street, there were a couple of front yards where embers had already landed and they were on fire.
At least 4 wildfires continue to burn uncontrollably across LA County, with officials saying none of them have been contained. As more than 70,000 people race to evacuate, traffic has been brought to a standstill, and bulldozers are being used to push abandoned vehicles off the road.
I've never been this close to it. Driving down the canyon was really very shattering.
It's an active firefight.
U.S. President Joe Biden had been in L.A. on unrelated matters and was briefed in person, promising federal assistance.
We're prepared to do anything and everything that we want to take. Anything's fired and help in construction.
At least 2 people are confirmed dead, and several others have suffered significant injuries. Ferocious winds of up to 160 kilometers per hour have been reported.
This is a particularly dangerous situation, a rare category of red flag warning that we use for the worst of the worst conditions that can come together to create the rapid spread of fires.
This Montrealer is on vacation in California, staying about 20 kilometers away from the fire.
The skies are flooded with smoke. We keep on losing our cell phone signal. We lost power about 4 or 5 times.
Standing in my driveway getting ready to evacuate.
Among the over 1,000 destroyed structures are many celebrity homes, including actor James Woods, who posted this video.
I'm sorry. Just, one day you're swimming in the pool and the next day it's all gone.
Firefighters will continue to be challenged, with strong winds expected to persist overnight. The wildfires are also impacting the National Hockey League. The NHL announcing it has postponed the game between the LA Kings and Calgary Flames, which was scheduled for tonight. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Rahim. And as mentioned, the California fires are being fueled by some very strong, very dry winds. There's a live shot of Pasadena. You can see there what's happening. Lindsay Morrison is here with what's happening there. Lindsay.
And Nathan, these are called Santa Ana winds. Perhaps you've heard of them before. I just want to describe what happens here. We have winds that develop in the interior of Southern California. They move over the mountains toward the coast and then offshore. And what these winds are very strong, very dry. They lack moisture, so they suck all that moisture out of the vegetation. They topple things like power lines, and so fires can spark very quickly, and then they spread rapidly. So we're watching this situation. The winds are just starting to ease a little bit, so that is some good news for Southern California and those wildfires. Meanwhile, closer to home, we have a very different weather story. It's been a cold day, our coldest of 2025 so far. Currently, the temperature in the city of Toronto is -8, but it feels like -17. We'll talk about when these temperatures are going to moderate a little bit coming up in your forecast. For now, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Still ahead, a series of attacks on the city's speed cameras. Police say they're now investigating at least 7 cameras taken down or vandalized. We'll have the latest on the string of destruction in just a few minutes. The Prime Minister was among those who gathered in Richmond Hill today for a somber memorial.
It was 5 years ago today that Ukrainian Airlines Flight 752 was brought down. All 176 people on board died. More than 60 were Canadians. CTV's Janice Golding spoke with families of some of the victims at today's memorial and is live tonight with the latest. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, a moving and emotional afternoon for those who gathered here in Richmond Hill today to remember those they lost 5 years ago on a doomed passenger flight that took off from an airport in Tehran. More than 600 people packed into the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts this afternoon. Friends, family members, and dignitaries, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, remembering the 176 victims killed aboard Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 5 years ago today.
It honors all memories of our loved ones, and it brings back to the public eyes that this happened.
Amir Arsalani lost his sister Avin, his brother-in-law Hiwa, and Kurdia, his 16-month-old niece.
There is a big hole in my heart. And Kurdia, the baby, she was just everything to me.
Meanwhile, Rehana Dirani lost her father, Ali Asghar.
My father was my best friend. Every day, I miss him. I wish he was here. I wish I could call him and talk to him. He was my guiding light and my advisor to everything I did.
On January 8, 2020, Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752 was struck down by 2 surface-to-air missiles launched by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Days after the attack, the Iranian government admitted the IRGC was responsible, but called it an accident, saying the Iranian military had mistakenly identified the plane as an American cruise missile.
No country responsible for shooting down an aircraft should be also responsible for the investigation into how that aircraft crashed.
Last fall, a group representing Canada, Ukraine, Sweden, and the UK filed a memorial with the International Court of Justice, accusing Iran of not conducting a transparent investigation.
Justice is necessary to bring at least some semblance of closure. When you know that the perpetrators of this horrific act still walk free.
And today, the Prime Minister joined his voice with those calling for justice.
The only thing that will bring ease to this pain is for them to go, for the regime to change.
You've been brought up to believe that when bad things happen, what goes around comes around. And I'm still waiting for that. I'm still waiting to have solace in what happened, understanding what happened, and justice.
Still, while proceedings advance, these families are once again united in their grief, united in their demands for accountability. In all, there are memorials taking place in 6 cities across Canada, and in total there were 55 Canadian citizens and 30 permanent residents who were aboard that doomed flight. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle.
Thank you, Janice. One person is in hospital, another in custody following a stabbing in the area of Jarvis and Dundas yesterday evening. Police say the incident happened at a residential building just before 6 o'clock. Both the victim and the suspect were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. So far, no word on charges.
And a man in his 50s is in hospital following a stabbing near Yonge and Steeles. Police responded to the call just after 8 last night. The man was transported with serious injuries. Police say a suspect was last seen running along Moore Park Avenue, and they're asking anyone with information to come forward.
Meanwhile, Hamilton police say the victim of a stabbing last week has now died of his injuries. Emergency crews were called to the Good Shepherd Men's Shelter on Thursday evening and arrived to find 47-year-old Venanzio Tirabassi with a stab wound to the chest. He died in hospital yesterday. 53-year-old Friedemann Renderos was arrested at the scene for aggravated assault, a charge that'll be upgraded to second-degree murder.
They were both residents of the same dorm. They had both been at the shelter for a period of time together, so they were known to each other simply through being residents of the shelter.
Police say there have been no reported issues between the pair in the past. They're asking anybody with information to get in touch.
Toronto police made an arrest in a deadly triple shooting that took place just over 3 years ago. On the evening of January 3rd, 2022, police responded to gunfire on 30th Street north of Lakeshore in Etobicoke. 2 men in their 20s from Mississauga were shot and killed. A woman suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Today in Mississauga, police arrested 34-year-old Philip Grant. He's charged with second-degree murder and firearm offenses, and he had been ranked Canada's 5th most wanted fugitive.
The province's Special Investigation Unit has laid charges against a former Toronto cop. The police watchdog says it was notified last year of allegations of a sexual nature dating back to 1981 or 1982 against an officer at the time. Now, he's since retired, but police say Luigi Di Lorenzo is charged with 1 count of gross indecency. He's required to appear in court in February.
Toronto police are asking for your help finding a pair of missing youths. Detectives shared this image of 12-year-old Neiman on the left and 16-year-old May on the right. They were last seen just after 12:10 this morning near Bay and Charles. They're known to frequent parks in the downtown core, and police say they are concerned for their safety. Anyone with information is asked to contact police or Crime Stoppers.
A possible strike of Ontario's colleges has been averted. Welcome news for students across the province.
Members of the union representing professors, librarians, and counselors were set to walk off the job, but they and the College Employer Council have now agreed to enter mediation. CTV's Beth McDonnell has more.
It's a big relief for college students across Ontario. No faculty strike.
Oh, that's good. I'm happy because I heard it's going to mess things up if it did happen.
It's better for me because I just started school, so I get to stay in and learn more.
The union, representing around 15,000 professors, librarians, and counselors, plan to walk off the job Thursday. But late last night, a change. With some benefits secured, the union and the College Employer Council are now entering mediation arbitration, avoiding a disruption at the province's 24 colleges.
A two-tiering workload, so new faculty coming into different conditions than faculty who've been there a while, the manipulation of the academic year, the loss of worker protections. Those were some of the major concessions that we fought and were able to have taken off of the table.
Still up in the air, the council says, are several demands, including reduced hours in the classroom, adding to $1 billion increase in costs. OPSU says for decades, work outside the classroom hasn't been properly acknowledged or compensated.
They've argued that this workload formula is 40 years old. It's actually not true. It was fully reviewed back in, I think it was 2010 or 2009. And at that time, the conclusion of the report was that there was no need to make any significant changes.
A big question right now, too, is the impact of international students on the system. After years of increases, colleges are dealing with a federal cap on enrollments.
The colleges are seeing approximately 60% to even 65% fewer international students. They were a major source of revenue for the colleges, and as a result, there's a significant reduction in that revenue.
At the end of the day, though, Ontario has over-relied through the Ford government on the enrollment of international students to make up for funding shortfalls.
Current students are thankful to continue their semester.
It is quite important to me, actually. I'm scheduled to graduate April 2026, and if that was delayed, it would put a whole damper on all my plans.
While students study, both sides say it could take months for faculty to get a contract. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
The Toronto District School Board has chosen its next Director of Education. Clayton Latouche will take on the role next month. He's currently an assistant deputy minister with the Ministry of Education, and before that, he was associate director of education at the York Region District School Board. Latouche began his career as a teacher with the TDSB in 1994. He said he's excited to return and work to achieve the best outcomes for students. And this evening, the TDSB is telling parents and guardians about a cybersecurity incident. This involves an application called Power School used to store information on students. Board officials say the company got in touch about a data breach experienced over a stretch in late December, but it's still not clear what information may have been accessed or exported. The board says it has notified Ontario's Information and Privacy Commissioner and will update the community with any new information it receives. A rash of vandalism involving speed cameras across the city continues.
Police say at least 7 cameras have now been vandalized. CTV's John Musselman has more.
Toronto police say at least 7 speed cameras like this one have been vandalized right across the city. Today, a crew from the company that installs and repairs them on behalf of the city was busy replacing this one, located at Avenue Road just south of St. Clair. Someone cut the pole last week that holds the camera up in the air.
It's pretty disappointing because these cameras are here for safety purposes.
Community safety activist Faraz Golizada says he's all too familiar with the vandalism of these cameras. The one located near his home on Parkside Drive in the West End was recently cut down and then dragged into a nearby pond at High Park. This street is a known trouble spot for speeding. The camera here racks up millions in fines. Golizada says vandals may think it's funny, but it puts people's lives at risk. Back in 2021, 2 seniors were killed when a speeding driver smashed into the back of their vehicle.
It's easy to avoid if you just obey the speed limit. These limits aren't arbitrary. They're there for a reason. They're there for safety. If you obey that speed limit, you don't get a ticket.
The City of Toronto condemns any incident of theft or vandalism of automated speed enforcement devices. Tampering with, damaging, or stealing one of these devices allows dangerous speeding to continue and undermines the safety of all road users, particularly those more vulnerable, such as pedestrians, cyclists, children, and the elderly. So far, police say no arrests have been made. Anyone caught damaging a speed camera is facing a criminal charge of mischief. Replacing a camera and the pole can cost as much as $10,000 each, experts say. Today, both cameras were replaced and they will be reactivated. John Musselman, CTV News.
To Ottawa, where Liberal members of Parliament met today for the first time since Prime Minister Trudeau announced his resignation.
The purpose of the meeting was to set some ground rules for the leadership race, which needs to happen quickly. CTV's senior political correspondent Mike LeCouture has the details.
Not sure who will be in this leadership race just yet, as a number of people are weighing their options. But we do have the first contender to declare they're out. Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominic LeBlanc says the best way to serve Canada is by concentrating on his current job.
I will be solely focused on the real economic threat that American tariffs represent to the Canadian economy and to Canadian workers.
It's something all candidates will have to grapple with. How do you feel about the leadership race coming up? While Chrystia Freeland isn't sharing her plans,
Good morning.
A number of her former cabinet colleagues are considering running for the leadership.
Over the past few days, I've received a lot of support from across the country. And of course, I've met with my team many times, my core team. And I've been reflecting.
I have had a number of colleagues that have approached me to encourage me to consider it. I certainly have been considering it.
I have ideas, and this campaign is going to be about precisely what are the things that we would want to contemplate for the future of Canada.
Prime Minister, sir.
The leadership race triggered by Justin Trudeau's departure will have to be a shortened one. And there are concerns over safeguarding it from foreign interference. Current rules allow non-citizens to vote for the next Liberal leader.
It's important that Canadians know that there is integrity in our processes, including the internal political processes.
A number of MPs told us they hope this process will bring the party closer to the center of the political spectrum, adding over the last 9 years, the Liberals have drifted to the left. Mike LeCouture, CTV News, Ottawa.
In the Gaza Strip, medics say Israeli strikes killed 27 people across the Palestinian territory today. The attacks occurred in Gaza City, Deir al-Balah City, and Jabalia, the largest of 8 historic refugee camps. Elsewhere in Gaza, the Israeli military has recovered the body of one of the hostages kidnapped during the October 7th Hamas attack. Yusuf Zidane was a member of the Bedouin community, part of Israel's Palestinian minority who has Israeli citizenship. The military is investigating the circumstances of his death. It's also examining evidence suggesting his son may have died after also being taken captive.
In Ukraine, a missile attack killed at least 13 people today. About 30 others were injured in the missile strike on the southern city of Zaporizhia. Ukraine's president said there is nothing more brutal than aerial bombing of a city, knowing ordinary civilians will suffer. Tomorrow will be a day of mourning in the region. Earlier, the Ukrainian military said it struck a fuel storage depot deep inside Russia. It caused a huge blaze at the facility that supplies an important air base.
In Washington, members of the public are paying their respects to Jimmy Carter for a second day ahead of his funeral tomorrow. America's 39th president is lying in state in the rotunda on Capitol Hill. He'll remain there until tomorrow morning when the casket is transported to Washington National Cathedral for the state funeral. Other former presidents are expected to attend, and so will Prime Minister Trudeau. Yesterday, the Georgia Democrat was remembered at the Capitol for his deep religious faith, long public service, and decades of humanitarian work beyond what he accomplished in politics.
Coming up, the push to get kids caught up on vaccinations. Toronto Public Health sending thousands of letters out to families of students who have incomplete vaccine records, warning of suspension.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, many drivers purchase brand new vehicles to avoid problems, but a Toronto man who bought an all-electric truck says it's been in the shop more than his driveway, and even though it's new, it already needs a replacement battery. That story is just ahead.
Well, it was a very cold start to the day today here in Ontario. Some communities in the -20s or -30s. Here in Toronto, we started off the day at -13. Not a record low, but well below seasonal. We have one more bitterly cold night to get through tonight, and then things will be a little better tomorrow afternoon. We're going to talk about your weekend forecast coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
Many people feel more comfortable buying brand new vehicles, but even if you do, they could still have problems right out of the factory.
That also includes new high-tech electric vehicles, which can occasionally have issues with their battery system. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan and Michelle. Well, no one wants to have problems with a brand new car, but it does happen. A Toronto man says he purchased a very expensive electric pickup truck, but it's been in the shop for the past 2 months and already needs its main battery replaced.
Chevy came out with a 780-kilometer range truck. I thought, let's go, sign me up.
George Philotos of Toronto purchased a 2024 EV RST Chevy Silverado in November. The loaded vehicle was about $140,000. Philotos works in the green energy sector and felt it was time to purchase an all-electric pickup.
We're part of the electrification of vehicles, and we're trying to, get the folks not only to walk the walk, but talk the talk.
But after driving the truck for only 3,000 kilometers, there were battery error codes. He took it back to his dealer and its main battery was replaced, but it's still been in the shop for the past 2 months.
I don't have any meaningful information as to what's wrong with the truck, when I'm going to get it back, what happened to the battery in the first place.
Philotos says he's paying $2,000 a month for a truck he can't drive.
If I have a lemon, I just want a new truck. Give me another truck that works.
But as we recently reported, there is no lemon law in Ontario when buying a new vehicle. There is in the U.S., and one was recently introduced in Quebec. So if a new car has serious problems, the dealer must take it back.
They can fix it. They have to give you a new car, or they have to give you back your money.
After we reached out to General Motors, the truck battery was replaced again for about $30,000. It was done under warranty, and Philotos was also given $4,000 to cover his 2 monthly payments. A spokesperson for Chevrolet told us, GM remains committed to delivering quality service. We have confirmed repairs have been completed to the customer's satisfaction. Philotos now has his truck back with a new functioning battery and says it's a relief to get it back on the road.
I am so glad I contacted CTV, Pat Foran. Your team has been just so super, and thank you so much for helping me. I really do appreciate it.
And there is a demand for more mechanics to work on electric and hybrid vehicles because the systems are very different from gasoline cars. With fewer EV mechanics, it can also lead to longer wait times to have electric vehicles repaired. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
We probably don't even have to tell you, coldest day of the year so far. It sure feels like it. And unfortunately, a warm-up starts tomorrow, although it's relative.
I know. We're looking forward to -1.
Ooh, balmy.
Imagine that. Hey, we might even make it to 0 this weekend. I know. We're celebrating, and the celebration might be a little short-lived because by next week, another round of Arctic air is going to move in. Yes, it is January. We usually expect this kind of weather, although last year in January we were very mild. Nothing quite like what we're experiencing today. A cold start and a cold night tonight. Here's a live look at downtown Toronto. The skaters are still out. I trust that everyone has bundled up because those wind chills are biting once again. It currently feels like -16 in the city of Toronto. Still at this hour, it feels like -20 in Ottawa. It still feels into the -30s in cities like Timmins and Moosonee. So it's cold. There's no other way around it, and it will remain cold through the night tonight. Here locally for us, we're expecting the low to drop near -11, -12 degrees, feeling like -18, -19. Partly cloudy skies. In fact, when you get some of that clearing, the cloud, it acts as insulation, so without it, it does become much colder. The trade-off, though, is tomorrow we are going to enjoy mainly sunny skies. That's the upside to all of this cold. And if we're lucky, we're going to land somewhere around -5 to -3 degrees at the height of the day tomorrow around the GTA. So sometimes we refer to this as the polar vortex. We've got an area of cold air. Into this weekend, we moderate a little bit, but then here comes the next one for the middle part of next week. So just a heads up as you start to plan. By next Tuesday, especially next Wednesday, we are going to be feeling that extreme chill once again. Let's talk about active weather. We've had lake effect snow the last couple of days off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. Snow squall warnings remain in place. I am anticipating that these are going to start to come to an end. You can see that snow still here on the satellite and radar. Few flurries making their way toward us here in the city of Toronto. And then over the next couple of days, again, as those taper off, we will be quiet until late day Friday. So this is a system that's going to move in more in the way of widespread snow, but it will be light. We're not looking at a major snow system at this point. I'm thinking anywhere from maybe 2 to 4 centimeters of snow around the GTA right now. And again, the majority of that happens Friday night and before you wake up on Saturday morning. Look at these temperatures, -2 degrees for your Friday. That's seasonal. Over the weekend, 0 possibly on Saturday. Sunday, maybe -1. Looks like we could have some cloud cover and then a few flurries following us into the early part of next week. There's your early look at the middle part of next week with a daytime high of only -8 once again next Wednesday. That's your look at the weather. Nathan, I'll send things back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, an Ontario destination gets a big shout out below the border. We'll tell you which waterway made the New York Times annual list of places to go.
Toronto Public Health is launching a new push to boost community protection from vaccine-preventable diseases. Thanks to the COVID pandemic, many students didn't get routine childhood vaccines that are typically administered at school. Now the health department is sending letters to thousands of families with teens in grade 11 whose vaccination records are incomplete. Officials say the shots offer crucial protection as outbreaks of whooping cough and measles are reported alongside seasonal respiratory viruses. They also say previous catch-up efforts have been effective.
We just finished assessing students who were born in 2016, and when we started out, only 29% of them were up to date, and when we finished the full cycle, 98% are now in compliance with the legislation, and many of them are up to date with their vaccinations.
Toronto Public Health says missed shots can be accessed at its catch-up clinics or through family physicians.
The organization representing Ontario's doctors says a shortage of physicians in this province is likely to get worse before it gets any better. Dr. Dominic Nowak is the president of the Ontario Medical Association. He shared his concerns with CP24, urging the Ford government to act quickly to address the trend. The Ontario College of Family Physicians says 2.5 million people didn't have a family doctor last year. But the OMA says that number could increase sharply as many family doctors consider retirement. The province recently named Dr. Jane Philpott to lead a new primary care action team. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Health pointed to other efforts to expand access to primary care and said the OMA was trying to score cheap political points with its comments during contract negotiations.
Rap mogul Jay-Z is asking a Manhattan judge to dismiss a lawsuit accusing him and Sean Diddy Combs of rape. Jay-Z, whose real name is Sean Carter, filed the motion claiming inconsistencies in his accuser's account. Jay-Z's attorney pointed to an interview the unnamed woman gave where she said she had made some mistakes in her retelling of the story of what happened at an after-party in 2000. Jay-Z and Combs have denied the allegations, while today's filing called for legal sanctions against the accuser's lawyer. He said the move reeks of desperation.
The wildfires in California have already delayed film and TV shoots and canceled premieres. The Screen Actors Guild Awards called off their event naming this year's nominees.
The best way to bring folks together
Something has changed within
is to give them a real good enemy.
The Guild announced the nominations by press release. On the film side, the list of nods was led by Wicked, which is up for consideration in 5 categories. Among TV honorees, it was Disney Plus series Shogun that came out on top, with the show's cast receiving their own 5 nominations. The SAG Awards ceremony takes place February 23rd. It's hosted by Kristen Bell.
And the Toronto International Film Festival has compiled its official selection of Canada's top 10 feature and short films of 2024. They include directorial debuts like R.T. Thorne's 40 Acres and entries from more established filmmakers like David Cronenberg's The Shrouds. The selected films will be showcased at TIFF Lightbox February 5th through 9th.
The countdown's officially on to the release of The Last of Us Season 2. HBO shared a teaser for the return of the smash hit adaptation of the video game series. It picks up where season 1 left off, following a pair of survivors trying to navigate the aftermath of a zombie apocalypse. Season 2 of The Last of Us will stream on Crave in April. Crave and CTV are both divisions of Bell Media.
An Ontario destination has made it onto the New York Times list of 52 places to go in 2025. But it may not be the tourist spot you're expecting. In spot number 40 is the Trent Severn Waterway. The Times said this is the year to go. Check out the nearly 400-kilometer-long system of rivers, lakes, and canals. The article also notes the waterway is undergoing a multi-year revitalization project and suggested culinary stops along the route. The Trent Severn Waterway was the only Canadian spot on the list.
After the break, we go a few rounds with Canadian Hall of Fame boxer Troy Ross. How the former champion went from the boxing ring to the big screen. His incredible story coming up.
It won't be easy and it won't happen overnight, but we owe it to workers in Ontario, across Canada, and the U.S. to act now.
Updating our top stories, Ontario's premier is pushing an ambitious energy alliance between this country and the U.S. in the face of looming tariffs from the incoming American president. The proposal includes expanding Ontario's energy grid, fast-tracking approvals for nuclear plants, and cutting red tape for cross-border transmission lines.
It honors all memories of our loved ones, and it brings back to the public eyes that this happened.
Hundreds gathered in Richmond Hill this afternoon to remember the victims of Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752. The plane was brought down 5 years ago today. Relatives gathered to remember their loved ones and renew their calls for justice. The flight was struck by 2 surface-to-air missiles launched by Iran. That country has claimed the incident was a mistake, saying the plane had been identified as an American cruise missile.
It's pretty disappointing because these cameras are here for safety purposes.
And Toronto police say they're now investigating at least 7 cases of vandalism against speed cameras across the city. One of the latest incidents happened near Avenue Road in St. Clair, where someone cut the pole that holds the camera. Police say anyone caught damaging a speed camera could face a criminal charge of mischief.
And remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video breaking news, give us a shout.
Investors have been dumping prominent food and beverage stocks in a bet on better returns from tech and other high-growth sectors. Andrew Bellabian in Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. Shares in General Mills, PepsiCo, Kraft Heinz, and the beer giant Constellation Brands all fell to their lowest in at least a year today. These food and drink stocks are seen as staples that offer reliable profits even if the economy weakens. But investors are expecting continued economic growth under U.S. President-elect Donald Trump as taxes and corporate regulations are reduced. TD Cowen analyst Robert Moskow cut cereal maker W.K. Kellogg to sell and J.M. Smucker to hold. He says consumers are demanding low food prices, and there are uncertainties around the impact of GLP-1 appetite reduction drugs. The Canadian dollar changed hands at 69.54 U.S. cents, down about 1/10 cent. West Texas Intermediate oil traded at $72.67 U.S. a barrel, down 90 cents. Western Canadian Select oil, by our latest fix, was at $61.29, up 38 cents. And the TSX Composite ended at 25,051.68, up just under 122 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Pride Toronto has announced the theme for this year's festival. This year's theme will be All In. Organizers say it's a call to solidarity, a rallying cry for connection, and a celebration of shared strength in the face of today's challenges. The entire month of June will see Pride events across the city, with the main festival weekend from June 26th to the 29th.
The Toronto Raptors are in New York tonight looking to halt a two-game losing skid.
Lopez, he's got the feel. They've made 23s tonight.
The Raptors lost 128-104 to Milwaukee on Monday night. Tonight, they face a Knicks team that is winless in their last 3 games. It kicks off a 3-game road trip for Toronto that also takes them to Cleveland and Detroit.
Stacey, she's going to put on the speed. On a breakaway, Laura Stacey, she scores!
And the Scepters are playing tonight in the first PWHL game in BC. Toronto faces off against the Montreal Victoire in a neutral site matchup. It is the second game of the league's takeover tour, intended to showcase women's pro hockey and test potential expansion markets.
Just a couple more days until Wild Card Weekend in the NFL, and a lot of football fans in the GTA are excited for the Bills game Sunday. Buffalo's hosting Denver, and what quarterback Josh Allen said today would be a tough challenge.
It's a team that came in here last year and they beat us. We know that. We understand that. It's a very good team. They're well coached. Their defensive line is one of the best in the league. They got a couple guys outside that can absolutely go. Obviously, look at Surtain, one of the best corners in the game. We're going to have our hands full. So, again, we're just trying to put one foot in front of the other, take it day by day, and have a good week of practice.
Buffalo takes a 13-4 regular season record into the game against the 10-7 Broncos. The Bills clinched a postseason spot in Week 13, but Denver had to wait until the final game of the season when they beat Kansas City. It's the Broncos' first playoff appearance in 8 years.
Troy Ross comes from a family of champion boxers, so it's no surprise he became one too. Now the former Canadian title holder is one of the newest members of the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame. CTV's Andrea Case went toe-to-toe with the champ.
Guyanese-Canadian boxer Troy the Boss Amos Ross never dreamed boxing in his family basement would lead to a role in an Oscar-winning film.
What are you doing? You beat this guy easy last time. Yeah, the same guy.
A few seconds in the ring with the former world title contender told me I don't have what it takes, but he does.
Now, after my career has been done for almost 12, I think pretty much 12 years, and now to be inducted into the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame, it's still surreal. It still has not really sunk in yet.
Amos Ross was given that honor recently. He says as an amateur and a professional, boxing gave him a life he never imagined.
When I first had my first fight in Bramley Boxing Club, we were traveling around Ontario. Once I won the Canadian championships, I was traveling around the world.
He fell into the sport organically. The Guyanese native comes from a family of boxers. His father represented Guyana in the Olympics, and his family emigrated to Canada in 1982.
Was not expecting it at all. Came home one day from school, and my father took us down into the basement, and he had the basement set up as like a boxing gym. One of the things I like about boxing, it was the one thing I was good at. It was, I tried every sport. Basketball was too short. Soccer, too much running.
If you're thinking of getting into the ring yourself, Troy has this advice. He says it's not about learning how to take a punch, it's learning how to avoid the punch.
People always look at me and say, oh, it must hurt. Of course it hurts. I don't know which punch you have ever gotten that did not hurt. But it's how you receive the punches. Your defense, it has to be better than your offense. Everybody has an offense. Even the youngest kid, like a baby, has an offense. But do they have a defense?
If he looks fit, there's a reason. Today, he trains the next generation of boxers who one day may follow in his footsteps and also be inducted in the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame. Andrea Case, CTV News.
Just ahead, we have a cute alert. Baby pandas explore their new play area at the Berlin Zoo. The adorable twin cubby adventure coming up. You don't want to miss this. Finally tonight, the Berlin Zoo's released new video of two of its most popular residents.
Oh, we're getting a glimpse of the zoo's panda twins as they get set to turn 5 months old in just a few weeks. Have a look. Staff say the cubs are now big enough to enjoy a more spacious and stimulating environment. Lenny and Lottie were seen exploring their new playroom. They have ample space to crawl, climb, and explore in this new play area. They spend most of the day there under the watchful eye of their mother. The zoo hopes this transition will support their healthy development as they continue to grow. And at night, the twins, they return to their cozy little box
Thankfully,
to rest.
we got the cute alert so we could brace ourselves.
We have been braced, and you know
Prepare
what?
for this.
Doesn't it warm your heart when it's absolutely frigid outside? Come on. Even
They're indoors. I thought they'd be outside.
you know, wow, they probably don't mind it. But yeah, even the coldest hearts are going to find that cute.
That's for sure. I love the names too, Lenny and Lottie. So sweet. Let's take one more look at what's in store for tomorrow morning when it comes to the weather. One more day of what we're calling extreme cold. Temperatures in the low minus single digits, but feeling well into the minus teens. Bundle up, bundle the kids up. I know I'm sounding like a broken record. Tomorrow afternoon, a little better, and we're going to have some sunshine. It's over the weekend that conditions will feel warmer. Into next week, we cool down again, and just a heads up, some light snow for Friday night into Saturday morning. Nathan and Michelle.
Thank you, Lindsay. And Omar Sachedina has you covered tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Almond with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here at CTV News, thanks for watching and have a great night.